You've been doing everything they said, scripting in the morning, journaling at night, reciting affirmations in the mirror with trembling hope. You've watched all the right videos, followed every method, lit the candles, felt the gratitude, and visualized your future so clearly it almost felt real. But still, it's not here. And worse, you're exhausted. It's as if the more you do, the further it slips away. Like chasing a horizon that keeps moving no matter how fast you run. You begin your day with a ritual checklist: 5 minutes of breath work, 10 of visualization, 15 of gratitude scripting, followed by a podcast, a technique, a loop of effort disguised as alignment. And yet, when you check your bank account, open your inbox, look at your calendar, nothing has changed. And the silence? It's heavy. This isn't laziness. This is spiritual fatigue. A quiet, growing ache that whispers, why isn't it working? You've bought the courses, downloaded the PDFs, underlined the quotes, and repeated the mantras until the words no longer feel like yours. Still, your reality echoes with sameness. Here's the truth no one tells you. When manifestation becomes your full-time job, it stops being magnetic. It becomes mechanical. The frequency behind the effort isn't belief, it's lack. The more you chase alignment through doing, the more you confirm to the field that you're not yet aligned. Because energy doesn't listen to your words, it listens to your signal. Your signal when you're exhausted. Your signal when you're trying to force clarity. Your signal when you're grasping instead of allowing. And it reflects it faithfully, not as punishment, but as a mirror. The field is neutral. It simply returns what you radiate. So the question isn't how many tools you're using, it's what energy is underneath them. Is it presence or performance? Is it peace or pressure? The rituals aren't wrong, but the reason behind them matters more than the ritual itself. You don't attract what you want by doing more. You allow it in by becoming the one who already has it. Which leads us to the root of the problem. Why does effort so often carry the energy of lack? Let's peel that open next. It's not the ritual. It's not the journal. It's not even the affirmation. It's the energy underneath it. Every action you take sends out a frequency, and that frequency speaks louder than your words ever will. You could be writing, "I am abundant," in gold ink on your favorite manifestation notebook. But if your heart is pounding with anxiety, if your stomach knots at the thought of tomorrow's bills, if your breath tightens as you write the words, then what you're truly transmitting is fear, not wealth. This is the invisible sabotage of vibrational mismatch. The field doesn't translate English or Spanish or Sanskrit. It reads your signal. It listens to your body, your tone, your presence. It decodes the unsaid. You can tell yourself, I'm aligned 100 times a day. But if you check your phone right after meditating, just to see if someone finally paid you, you're still in the energy of needing, wanting, lacking. The space you create to attract is immediately filled with doubt, and that split-second reaction tells the field everything. It's not about pretending to be calm. It's about actually being calm. Your practices, no matter how sacred they seem, become polluted when driven by desperation. You may call it faith, but the field knows the truth. And so does your body. You feel the tight chest, the restless mind, the need to make it happen. That is the signal being broadcast. Not the vision board, not the mantra, but the frequency of pressure. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your vibration. Your signal is your truth. It is your essence, and it cannot be faked. This is not to shame your effort. It's to illuminate why your effort hasn't yet turned into evidence. The contradiction between what you say and what you actually feel is what slows it down. When your mind says, I believe, but your body says, I doubt, the field mirrors the confusion. And so, what manifests is confusion. What you want is clarity. And clarity begins with coherence. So now, let's go deeper into this energetic contradiction and finally uncover why your reality keeps reflecting the very thing you're trying to escape. The paradox is subtle but powerful. The more you do, the less clear your signal becomes. You might think layering 6 different manifestation methods gives you a better chance of success, but in truth, what you're sending out is confusion. Scripting your desires at dawn, tapping on your doubts by noon, visualizing during lunch, chanting affirmations at dusk, lighting candles at midnight, and in between jumping from one method to the next, all of it fragments your energy. Imagine tuning into 5 radio stations at once. What do you hear? Not music, not a message, just noise, static. And that's exactly what the universe hears when your frequency is scattered. Not a focused intention, but a blurry, overloaded signal that lacks coherence. Your body feels this too. Instead of being in flow, you begin to feel resistance. You're not uplifted. You're overwhelmed. You're not aligned. You're chasing alignment. And every technique begins to feel like a lifeline rather than a natural expression of inner truth. You're not attracting. You're reaching. And that reaching tells the field, I still don't have it. That's why so many feel spiritually exhausted. Not because they're not doing enough, but because they're doing too much from too many directions, with too little stillness in between. When your actions are reactive, driven by doubt or urgency, they lose their magnetic power. The truth is simple. Clarity attracts, confusion delays. And clarity only comes when you stop doing for a moment and return to being. One pure, calm signal is more powerful than 10 frantic attempts. This is not about abandoning practices. It's about choosing from wholeness instead of fear. When you act from inner overflow, your presence is enough. When you act from emptiness, no amount of technique can compensate. So ask yourself gently, are your rituals rooted in trust or in panic masked as productivity? The field doesn't measure how much you do. It mirrors how clearly you vibrate. And now that you see why doing more has held you back, the question becomes deeper. If your efforts have only pushed things away, then what does the universe actually respond to? What creates true coherence? To answer that, we must enter the quantum field itself. You speak the words with conviction, hoping the universe is listening. You affirm, I am abundant, I am worthy, I am loved, but something inside still doesn't feel aligned. That's the contradiction that keeps your reality stuck. Because while your voice says yes, your nervous system whispers no. This is the invisible tension between thought and energy, between what you consciously desire and what you unconsciously broadcast. The frequency of lack isn't about what you want, it's about how you feel in the wanting. If your affirmations are laced with tight shoulders, clenched jaws, shallow breathing, or a racing heart, then your body is not in agreement with your mind. The energy behind your words becomes louder than the words themselves. Imagine telling the universe, I am wealthy, while secretly dreading the bills piling up. That's like ordering abundance, but sending out the signal of fear. The field doesn't decode language, mirrors your dominant vibration. A real-world moment. You sit to meditate, press play on your favorite abundance track, and tell yourself you're shifting timelines. But underneath, the thought arises, this better work today because I really need it. That subtle undertone is not trust. It's energetic desperation. And desperation, no matter how beautifully masked with spiritual practices, speaks of absence. The universe responds not to what you say, but to what you embody. Your subconscious frequency always leads the conversation. And this is where many well-meaning creators get stuck. They do all the right things on the outside, but their inner world is misaligned, hesitant, doubtful. As a result, the field reflects hesitation, not certainty. The quote is simple but true. It's not what you say, it's what your nervous system whispers beneath your words. So the deeper question becomes, where does this quiet contradiction come from? Why does your body still hold the vibration of lack, even when your mind is trying to be abundant? Let's uncover the root of this resistance, buried deep in subconscious memories and unprocessed emotional energy. Because once you see it, you can shift it. And only then can your entire field finally align. And this is where it gets even trickier. Because the scarcity mindset doesn't always show up as panic or chaos. Sometimes it puts on a spiritual robe and pretends to be devotion. You might think you're aligned because you're doing all the right things, lighting the candles, playing binaural beats, journaling your intentions, reciting affirmations, but the truth is, those rituals can be a mask, a disguise for fear. You might write about your dream life every single morning, but deep inside, you're secretly thinking time is running out, success is slipping away, and you're falling behind. That inner tension taints every word with urgency. You might say, your affirmations in front of a mirror, but if your eyes reflect doubt or desperation, the field picks that up, not the sentence. This is how scarcity hides. It hides behind crystals and sage, behind technique and routine. It looks calm on the surface, but screams chaos in your vibration. That's why so many people get stuck in cycles of spiritual bypassing, where they think the ritual is the power, not realizing it's the energy behind the ritual that speaks loudest. Lighting a candle without presence is just burning wax. Chanting affirmations without belief is just echo. Journaling without emotional embodiment is just ink. This is the trap of masked fear, where repetition replaces embodiment. As one teacher sighed, not every spiritual action is aligned. Some are fear-wearing crystals. It's not about what the action looks like on the outside. It's about where it comes from inside. Are you connecting to the version of you who already has? Or are you begging from the energy of not yet? And how do you even tell the difference when both can look identical? This is where the real shift begins. Because when you can distinguish true alignment from disguised lack, you stop performing and start embodying. So let's explore that next. How can you know, moment to moment, if you're broadcasting from overflow or scarcity? Let's break it down into clear signals your body and energy are always sending if you know how to read them. And this is where the body never lies. Because no matter how polished your spiritual routine appears, your emotional state always tells the truth. When you're manifesting from, I don't have it, your nervous system becomes your most honest teacher. The signs are subtle, but powerful. You find yourself constantly checking your phone for messages, refreshing your bank app, or scanning the mirror for signs your appearance is finally changing. You start comparing your timeline with someone else's, wondering why their reality shifted and yours hasn't. You might even feel a quiet pressure each morning, as if your practices are duties, not devotion. That creeping should energy begins to poison what was once sacred. And here's a truth that stings for many. If your manifestation routine is making you feel more exhausted than expanded, more anxious than aligned, it's no longer a tool, it's a trigger. I once worked with someone who meditated twice a day, kept a vision board updated weekly, and journaled religiously. But every night, she went to bed with a sinking heart, quietly wondering if it was all pointless. The truth? She wasn't manifesting from overflow. She was operating from a quiet panic dressed as discipline. And this is the emotional compass you must learn to read. Because while your mind might say, I'm doing the work, your vibration might be quietly whispering, I still don't believe. And the universe always responds to the whisper, not the words. That's why emotional guidance is the most reliable navigation system for conscious creation. Not to shame you for feeling off, but to invite you to realign from within. If you're feeling drained instead of elevated, pressured instead of peaceful, then it's time to pause. The energy behind your desire is the destiny you create. And if that energy is frantic, the results will reflect that chaos. So now that we've peeled back the layers of false alignment, it's time to ask a deeper question. If the universe doesn't respond to your words, but your frequency, how does it actually read your signal? Let's explore that together. While your lips may speak dreams of abundance, love, or confidence, your energetic field might be whispering an entirely different story. And this is what the universe responds to every single time. It doesn't speak in affirmations, mantras, or scripts. It speaks the language of vibration. You could say, "I'm confident," every morning in the mirror, but if your shoulders are hunched, your breath is shallow, and your belly clenches with unspoken self-doubt, then the dominant frequency being broadcast is not confidence, it's fear. Think of it like sending a text that says, "I'm fine," while your eyes are swollen from tears. On the surface, the message sounds aligned, but the emotional signal is screaming the opposite. And here's the truth. Energy never lies. The field isn't fooled by performance. It tunes in to what's consistent, not what's clever. You might recite, "I am abundant," 10 times a day. But if you flinch every time you pay a bill or feel tension walking past a luxury store, the field reads lack not wealth. Your body is always transmitting your subconscious truth. This means your posture, your breath, your tone, even your micro reactions are all broadcasting signals into the quantum field, shaping the reflection that returns to you. That's why you can't fake alignment. You embody it or you don't. And this is not a judgment, it's liberation. Because when you understand that words alone won't shift your timeline, you stop trying to say the right things and start focusing on being the aligned version of you. As the saying goes, your energy is louder than your mouth, and the universe is always listening. This is why so many people feel frustrated, stuck in a loop of effort with no result. They're speaking one frequency and living another. But when you bring your energy into integrity, the field has no choice but to echo it back. So how does this all make sense through the lens of science and vibration? Let's take it one step deeper. If your body is the instrument and your energy is the song, then your reality is simply the echo of the music you're already playing. You are not a megaphone trying to convince the universe with words. You are a living, breathing radio tower, constantly broadcasting your most dominant signal, whether you realize it or not. This is why the concept of alignment matters far more than the content of your affirmations. You might say, "I'm successful," but if your energetic frequency is still tuned to fear, doubt, or scarcity, then what you receive will reflect that exact station. It's just like tuning a radio. You may want to hear what's on 96.9 FM, but if your dial is set to 88.7, that's the sound you'll get, no matter how loudly you demand otherwise. The universe doesn't respond to volume, it responds to clarity. Think of someone softly whispering, "I am loved," while their heart is still clenched in loneliness, searching for signs that it's true. That whisper, however sweet, is layered with static, and that static is what the field responds to. This is why trying to force manifestation through repetition alone often backfires. The more you try to amplify words without adjusting your internal frequency, the more resistance you build. Because the universe is never responding to what you say, it's attuning to what you are. You don't get what you ask for. You get what you are a vibrational match to. The signal you're emitting is not just created when you sit down to visualize or affirm. It's running all day long, powered by your beliefs, emotions, and subconscious programs. You can't fake a signal. You can only tune it. And once you truly grasp this, everything changes. You stop trying to shout affirmations into the void and start turning inward, recalibrate the energy you're sending out. Because the clearer your frequency becomes, the more effortlessly the field reflects it. So what happens when your affirmations and emotions are in conflict? Let's decode the energetic gap. and what it truly means. If you've ever spoken an affirmation over and over, hoping it would eventually change your life, but instead felt more frustrated than fulfilled, you're not alone. The reason isn't that affirmations don't work. It's that disconnected affirmations are just noise. Words without embodiment are like seeds scattered on concrete. There's no fertile soil for them to root in. Saying, "I am loved," while secretly believing you're unworthy, sends an energetic signal of contradiction, not creation. It's not the sentence that holds power. It's the feeling you're willing to attach to it. The subconscious mind doesn't care how eloquently you speak. It doesn't decode language. It reads emotional tone. That's why you can say all the right things on paper, but if your body flinches with doubt, fear, or shame, the vibration you're transmitting tells the real story. It's like trying to play a love song through a broken speaker. No matter how beautiful the lyrics, the distortion is what fills the room. True transformation begins when you stop forcing words and start embodying truth. This means allowing your affirmations to rise from the inside out, not pushing them in from the outside. It means choosing statements that you can not only say, but actually feel in your body. Breathe into your heart and relax into your nervous system. Because until your energy agrees with your language, nothing truly shifts. You're not casting spells with your mouth. You're issuing instructions with your entire field. So next time you say, "I am abundant," pause and ask yourself, can I feel that right now? Even just 1%? Can I let that be real in this moment? Not someday, but now? Because when your words and your frequency hold hands, reality responds. And if words alone can't move the universe, then what can? Let's go deeper into the power of embodied feeling and explore the quantum ritual that locks this energy into your body every single morning. Every time you push harder, strive more, or hustle to make something happen, there's an invisible message riding on your effort, and that message is lack. It's the silent signal that says, "I don't have it yet," even when your mouth is saying otherwise. This is the paradox of manifestation. While taking action is often praised, it's not the action itself that creates results. It's the energy behind it. And when that energy is rooted in fear, urgency, or scarcity, it generates the exact opposite of what you want. Imagine applying to 10 jobs in a single day, not from a place of excitement or confidence, but because you're terrified you'll never be hired. Each resume sent carries not only your qualifications, but your panic. The same happens in spiritual practice. You might spend hours scripting your desires, repeating affirmations, or visualizing your dream life. But when you walk away feeling drained instead of expanded, that's a sign your frequency was off. You weren't aligning, you were pleading. And that energy doesn't attract, it repels. The universe isn't responding to your to-do list. It's responding to your internal state. So if that state is one of struggle, striving, or subtle panic, the result is more resistance, more delay, and more disappointment. It's like trying to swim upstream with all your might, while the current of your own energy is pulling you in the opposite direction. This is why manifestation often feels exhausting, because effort that stems from fear creates emotional friction. And emotional friction generates static in your field. Static distorts your signal. And when your signal is distorted, reality responds with confusion. That's the loop many people are stuck in. Do more, receive less, feel worse, try harder. But the answer isn't more effort. It's better energy. Because clarity moves mountains where hustle cannot. So the real question becomes, how do you shift from effort to embodiment? From chasing to radiating? Let's explore how this self-sabotaging loop gets formed and how to finally break free from it. When effort becomes your default response to uncertainty, you unknowingly enter the loop of control, frustration, and delay. It starts innocently. You want something deeply, so you try. But when results don't arrive instantly, doubt begins to creep in. That doubt whispers, maybe I didn't do enough. So you double down, add another method, spend more time, try harder. And yet again, nothing shifts. Now comes the frustration. You feel like you've done everything right, but the only thing growing is your exhaustion. So what do? You try to control even more. You rewatch videos, tweak your affirmations, change the color of your vision board, meditate again, but this time with a clenched jaw and racing heart. That's not alignment. That's anxiety wrapped in spiritual clothing. And the longer you stay in that pattern, the more you associate manifestation with failure, not flow. It becomes something you fight with, not something you feel into. The vibration of frustration is subtle but powerful. It floods your field with urgency, tension, and self-doubt. And the universe, always responding to your dominant frequency, mirrors that emotional chaos back to you. You're not being punished. You're just caught in a feedback loop. Think of a flower bud. You cannot force it open without damaging it. You can only create the right conditions for it to bloom. The same is true with your desires. When you try to force their arrival, you close off the space they need to unfold naturally. And the truth is, frustration isn't a sign you failed. It's a signal that you've stopped trusting. It's feedback from your own energy field saying, you're out of sync. And once you see it as feedback, you no longer need to spiral. You can pause, breathe, shift. So instead of tightening your grip and trying harder, what if you did the opposite? What if you softened, surrendered, and tuned into the frequency that creates without effort? Let's explore exactly what the field responds to and how to finally broadcast a signal that matches the life you truly desire. And that's when the real shift happens, the moment you stop chasing and start aligning. When you release the grip of trying to force a specific outcome, you finally create space for something deeper to move through you. Manifestation was never meant to be about chasing results. It's about becoming the version of you who no longer needs to chase, because their energy already holds the thing they once longed for. Think about the people who effortlessly attract opportunities, love, or abundance. They're not frantically trying to manifest. They've stopped obsessing over the how and instead tuned into the who they're being on a daily basis. Water never chases the cup. It flows naturally to where there's openness, to where there's space to receive. And the same is true with the field. The more tightly you grip the outcome, the more you signal resistance. The more you relax into alignment, the more effortlessly it arrives. The need to control is the ego's last attempt to avoid surrender. But alignment doesn't come from control. It comes from coherence. You don't align by thinking harder. You align by feeling truer. You tune your energy not by effort, but by presence. Because the field doesn't reward the one who works the hardest. It reflects the one who is most congruent. And that congruence comes from being honest with yourself about who you are right now and who you're willing to become. Alignment is not passive. It's powerful. It's not lazy. It's laser focused. When you let go of chasing and shift into being, the things you once fought for begin to find you. Not because you earned them through effort, but because you became the version of you who was finally open enough to let them in. So now the real question is this: if it's not your effort, your checklist, or your constant hustle that the field responds to, then what is it? What is the frequency that truly shapes your reality? Let's move into the next layer of truth and discover what the universe has actually been listening to all along. When your energy is scattered, so is your signal, and the quantum field mirrors exactly that. You can say all the right things, visualize with passion, and take aligned action. But if the frequency underneath keeps shifting, the results will stay in limbo. The quantum field doesn't respond to words or rituals. It responds to clarity, energetic clarity, the kind that feels like a clear Wi-Fi signal, stable, strong, and consistent. Imagine trying to connect to a network while someone keeps changing the password or walking too far from the router. The connection keeps dropping, not because the network doesn't exist, but because the signal is unstable. That's exactly what happens when you affirm abundance in the morning, then spiral into doubt by midday, and change your manifestation technique by night. The signal gets jammed. You are emitting too many frequencies at once, and the field doesn't know what to collapse. Energy flows where consistency grows. And in manifestation, consistency isn't about doing, it's about being. Being the version of you who is stable in your signal, the one who holds the frequency, even when nothing has shown up yet. This is what alignment really means. Not perfection, but coherence. Not noise, but resonance. The universe isn't checking your checklist. It's tuning into the rhythm of your energy. And when that rhythm is steady, like a clear tone humming through space, the field begins to respond with precision. Clarity is magnetic. It simplifies the signal. It sharpens your presence. And it tells the universe, this is who I am. This is what I allow. This is what I'm open to receive. Because clarity isn't about knowing every step. It's about embodying the state that no longer doubts. So if you've been wondering why your results feel delayed, maybe it's not the effort that's missing, but the energetic stability. And that brings us to the next question. What actually creates a frequency that is consistent enough to shape reality? Let's explore what builds that unshakable inner signal. Coherence is the silent signal that speaks louder than any affirmation, louder than any action, louder than any vision board could ever shout. It's the alignment between your thoughts, your emotions, and your body, where all parts of you are broadcasting the same frequency without conflict. After understanding that clarity is what the quantum field responds to, the next layer is coherence. Because without internal harmony, even a clear signal gets distorted by contradiction. Coherence is the energetic state where your nervous system feels safe, your mind feels focused, and your heart feels open. According to research from the HeartMath Institute, when you feel genuine gratitude or compassion, your heart rhythm becomes synchronized, creating a coherent electromagnetic field that affects your entire being. This is not just emotional well-being. This is science meeting spirit. Think of someone who walks into a room and you instantly feel calm around them, not because they said anything, but because their energy is coherent. Their thoughts are not racing in fear, their body is not tense with doubt, and their emotions are not swinging between extremes. They are congruent, whole, aligned, and that alignment creates a gravitational pull that brings things to them, not through hustle, but through harmony. Coherence is when you don't just say, I trust. You feel it in your chest. You breathe it into your belly. You move with it in your decisions. And when you embody coherence, the universe recognizes your signal as stable, trustworthy, and ready. Because coherence doesn't chase, it receives, it holds, it magnetizes. The field reads this unified energy and begins to respond in kind. But what happens when that alignment is broken? When the mind says yes, but the body trembles no? When your words declare faith, but your gut clutches fear? That's the moment when coherence slips into fragmentation. And in the next part, we'll explore the cost of incoherence and how to gently return to your aligned state when the outside world tries to pull you back into the noise. When coherence is broken, even slightly, the frequency you send becomes distorted, and the reality you receive reflects that distortion right back at you. Emotional chaos, no matter how spiritually disguised, scrambles your signal like static over a radio channel. One moment you feel empowered, the next you spiral into doubt, fear, or urgency. This instability sends the field conflicting instructions, like a GPS recalculating every few seconds, never settling on a destination. It's like trying to stream music while switching Wi-Fi networks every 5 minutes. The song never finishes. The rhythm never builds. And instead of harmony, all you hear is disruption. In the quantum world, this is called decoherence, when the wave collapses inconsistently because the energy driving it is scattered. And when your emotions swing wildly from hope to panic, from faith to fear, your field cannot lock into a stable pattern to create results. You've likely felt this. One day you're certain the breakthrough is close, and the next you're spiraling in frustration, wondering if anything is ever going to shift. That loop is not proof that you're broken. It's simply a mirror of an unstable frequency asking to be regulated. Because manifestation is not about perfect thinking. It's about energetic steadiness. It's the emotional equivalent of learning to hold a note rather than bouncing between keys. As long as your nervous system is riding emotional waves of desperation and disappointment, your field will remain inconsistent, and the manifestations you receive will mirror that inconsistency. The universe is not punishing you, it's responding with precision to your vibration. So instead of trying harder, the deeper invitation is to stabilize, to soften, to tune your internal music until it hums in resonance. Because when you stop reacting to every emotional spike and instead return gently to your center, you regain power. And that's when real manifestation begins, not through the noise of control, but through the silence of trust. Which brings us to the next truth. The 5 quantum shifts that change everything. Letting go is not defeat. It is the most elevated act of energetic intelligence. It is not a surrender of desire. It is a surrender of control. In a world that constantly tells you to hustle harder, to chase results, to track every detail of your progress, the idea of simply allowing can feel terrifying. But energetically, letting go is not passive. It's powerful. It creates the spaciousness through which alignment flows freely. Think of it like placing an online order. You select what you want, click confirm, and then go about your day. You don't stand by the warehouse checking if they've started packing your box. You trust it's on its way. This is what true surrender feels like. Not giving up on your vision, but giving up on the anxious timeline, the obsessive need to micromanage, the constant checking for proof. Because every time you try to control the outcome, you send a message to the universe that says, I don't trust this will happen unless I force it. And that message becomes the dominant frequency. But when you step back, when you breathe, soften, and live from a place of enoughness, something profound occurs. The very thing you stop chasing starts moving toward you. It's the paradox of energy. The moment you no longer need it to arrive is when you become the version of yourself that's aligned to receive it. Real-world stories echo this truth again and again. People who script daily with no result, then one day simply stop, go for a walk, enjoy the sun, reconnect with joy, and that very week, the opportunity lands. Why? Because they finally got out of the way. They made space. They stopped sending the signal of urgency and started embodying trust. Letting go doesn't mean you stopped believing. It means you've started trusting. And trust is a frequency that collapses timelines. So what really happens when you let go of trying and enter full presence? That's where we go next. Presence is not something you schedule. It's not a technique you apply for 5 minutes and then return to worry. Presence is a state of frequency that says, I am here, I am safe, and all is well now. When you stop checking, stop pushing, stop needing the outcome to validate you, you activate a powerful shift in your field. That shift is not loud, it's not dramatic, but it is magnetic. Because the moment you stop trying to control, your energy moves from lack to trust, from seeking to receiving. Control is fear disguised as productivity. It's the ego's way of pretending it's in charge when deep down it feels unworthy of receiving without struggle. But presence doesn't ask for proof. It simply aligns. Think of the woman who did all the things: affirmations, visualizations, journaling, until one day she stopped. Not because she gave up, but because she realized her peace mattered more. She sat in the sun, read a book she loved, let the breeze touch her skin without needing the universe to do something. And that week, she received the call she had been hoping for. Her energy had shifted, not because she forced it, but because she became the version of herself that no longer needed to chase. Presence is the energy of already having. It's the calm confidence that comes when your worth no longer depends on results. When you're not in a rush, you're no longer in resistance. And when you're no longer in resistance, the field can finally meet you. Presence is not the absence of desire. It's the fullness of trust. It's where reality begins to organize around your internal clarity. So as your energy begins to settle, as your vibration aligns with this moment, what happens next is not forced. It's allowed. Because from this space, you no longer chase what you desire. You become the space where it naturally arrives. And now, that space is open. That field is listening. That shift is already beginning. Stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness without noise. It is the moment your body relaxes, your breath slows, and your energy stops reaching outside for proof. In that stillness, your signal becomes coherent. It becomes unmistakable. And that is when the field begins to respond. Not to your words, not to your effort, but to the unmistakable vibration of a being who already knows it is done. The paradox is that stillness, this quiet, gentle state, is one of the most powerful energies in the universe. Because stillness carries no resistance. It's not trying. It's not convincing. It's not begging. It's just being. And being, when fully embodied, is the strongest attractor of all. Think of the people you've seen who seem to attract effortlessly. They aren't racing. They aren't chasing. They're walking in alignment, speaking with clarity, resting in trust. They don't need it, so it finds them faster. That's the power of stillness. It's not the absence of desire. It's the presence of wholeness. And this presence creates the clearest signal you could ever broadcast. A signal that says, I don't just want this, I already am the person who lives it. You can access this now. Close your eyes. Take a breath. Don't fix your feelings. Just notice. Let your energy settle into this moment. Let your mind rest without trying to figure anything out. You're not here to hustle for your worth. You're here to allow your worth to be felt. And when you stop vibrating in effort and drop into being, you become the match to everything you thought you had to earn. Because stillness is not passive, it's magnetic. The less you need it, the faster it finds you. And that's the invitation of this moment, to stop doing for a moment and let the clarity of your presence shape what comes next. So now, how do we shift from the energy of wanting into the state of already having? That's exactly where we're headed next. Wanting seems innocent, even natural. But wanting carries within it a subtle yet powerful signal of separation. When you say, I want, you're affirming to the field that you are not already one with what you desire. You are identifying as someone who lacks it. And in quantum language, identity is everything. You cannot receive from a place of not having. You receive by being the frequency that matches the reality you say you want. Wanting is always pointing toward the future. It's filled with reaching, longing, hoping. And each of those vibrations tells the field it's not here yet. Imagine someone who deeply longs for a loving relationship. They light candles. They script their dream partner. They whisper wishes into the night. But all the while, Their dominant emotion is loneliness. Their signal isn't, I am love. Their signal is, I am still alone. The field mirrors not their desire, but their dominant frequency. And this is why wanting often creates more. Waiting, because the frequency of wanting keeps you looping in the experience of not yet having. The field doesn't respond to your words. It reflects your state. That's why the moment you say, I want, you're declaring, I don't have. And that vibration echoes far louder than the words themselves. This isn't about denying desire. It's about understanding how to transmute desire into embodiment. Because when you shift into being, the entire story changes. You're no longer outside the thing you once longed for. You're inside the frequency where it already lives. You begin to radiate a signal of certainty, not searching. And from that state, everything begins to rearrange. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped affirming the absence. So what does this being state really feel like? How do you step into it fully and let it shape your field? That's exactly what we're about to unlock in the next segment. Being is not about pretending to have something you don't. It's about stepping into the version of you who no longer doubts that it's already on the way. It's not about faking confidence or forcing belief. It's about aligning with the energy of someone who no longer needs to chase. Because in the quantum field, what you identify as is what magnetizes your experiences. If you identify as someone who lacks, you'll continue to confirm that identity through your reality. But the moment you shift into being into embodying, the person who already feels safe, abundant, and worthy, your frequency sends out a signal that the universe cannot ignore. Think of the person who moves through their day with a quiet confidence. They don't constantly ask where their manifestation is. They don't perform rituals from a place of lack. They act as if the field is already working in their favor, because it is. They are not hoping to attract something. They are being the energy that attracts. And this being state is deeply rooted in trust, in inner calm, and in emotional clarity. Someone who is being love doesn't chase attention. Someone who is being abundance doesn't operate from scarcity. Someone who is being peace doesn't search for validation. This is the true identity shift. And it's not about effort. It's about allowing the deeper truth of who you already are to take the lead. Being is choosing to live from the end, not because you've seen the evidence, but because your nervous system knows what it feels like to already be there. The greatest alignment happens when your body, your mind, and your energy all agree on one truth. It's already done. So how do you start living from this state without falling into performance or spiritual bypassing? How do you shift into the feeling of already having in a way that feels natural and real? Let's walk into that now, because the answer lies not in more effort, but in emotional integration. Embodiment is the unspoken signal that rewires your entire field into alignment with your desires. It's not about saying the right things or doing the most spiritual rituals. It's about becoming the frequency you're asking for. The universe doesn't follow language. It reflects being. When you embody wealth, you don't just say, I am abundant. You walk with certainty. You breathe with ease. You make choices as someone who trusts that life supports them. This is not performance, it's identity integration. Just like a mirror doesn't respond to what you wish it would reflect, but to what you show it, the quantum field responds to the vibrational self you consistently bring to each moment. Think of it like tuning a guitar. You don't need to strum louder. You need to get in tune. That tuning happens through your posture, your presence, your patterns. Embodiment is found in the quiet details in how you greet your morning, in the way you respond to uncertainty, in whether you take action from faith or fear. It's in the small, invisible shifts that recalibrate your frequency into resonance with already having. Someone who has embodied peace doesn't just meditate, they exude calm when things don't go as planned. Someone who has embodied confidence doesn't just say affirmations. They speak from grounded conviction in every room they enter. You don't become magnetic through wanting. You become magnetic through living, as if your energy is already fulfilled. And this way of being does not require force. It asks for alignment. It begins not with more effort, but with less resistance, with releasing the need to prove, chase, or fix, and instead returning to the simplicity of presence. Because simplicity is not weakness, it is clarity, and clarity is power. So as we move into what truly locks in this transformation, let's explore the simple, repeatable daily practices that ground your frequency into the timeline you've been waiting for. The ego is a master of disguise, and one of its favorite masks is complexity. It whispers that manifestation must be hard, that spiritual growth requires an endless checklist of techniques, rituals, and perfect behaviors. Not because these things are truly needed, but because the ego fears what it cannot control. Simplicity terrifies the ego because it cannot manipulate what flows naturally. The moment you start to simplify, to drop the layers of effort and come back to presence, ego panics. It tells you you're being lazy, that you're not doing enough, that you're giving up. It confuses stillness with weakness and ease with irresponsibility. But in truth, complexity is often just the ego's strategy to stay in charge. It keeps you looping in overthinking, jumping from method to method, chasing the next trick that might finally work. And it convinces you that the more complicated your practice, the more worthy you are of the outcome. But worth is not proven by struggle. Worth is remembered in stillness. Imagine someone who's used to doing 5 different techniques a day, suddenly dropping them all, and simply sitting in the energy of I am. That person might feel vulnerable, exposed, even anxious, because without the armor of doing, the ego has nothing to cling to. But in that naked presence lies the truth of your power. Simplicity is not a shortcut, it is a surrender to clarity, and clarity collapses timelines. When you return to the essence of alignment without the need to prove, justify, or overperform, you become magnetic in your being. You shift from trying to trusting, from controlling to allowing. And in that space, manifestation becomes less about mechanics and more about momentum. So while the ego clings to the noise of effort, the soul finds strength in the silence of simplicity. Which brings us to the paradox. What if doing less actually allows more? Let's explore the surprising strength hidden inside spiritual minimalism. When you strip away the layers of performance, what remains is your frequency, and that frequency is what the field responds to. It doesn't measure how many vision boards you've created, how often you visualize, or how long your affirmations are. It listens to the purity of your presence. Energetic clarity is far more magnetic than 1,000 scattered efforts. In fact, 5 minutes of stillness with full awareness carries more creative power than 2 hours of chaotic practice. When you're fully present, when your energy is undiluted by worry, self-doubt, or comparison, you become a clean signal in the field. That signal, clear and unwavering, cuts through the noise and begins attracting with precision. It's not about the volume of your rituals, it's about the alignment of your vibration. True presence says, I already am, without needing to say a word. Consider someone who sits quietly each morning, not trying to force a result, but simply tuning into gratitude, trust, and wholeness. That person is not chasing, they're becoming. They're not demanding, they're resonating. And the universe, ever so responsive, moves to meet them there. This is the essence of simplicity, not the absence of effort, but the refinement of it. A simplicity that's born from inner knowing, from spiritual maturity, from the surrender of trying to control what was never meant to be forced. As clarity deepens, so does magnetism. And in this quiet space, you realize something profound. Your energy has always been the source, not your strategy. But to rest in this simplicity requires courage, because the ego will fight to stay complex, to stay important, to stay in charge. It will resist the stillness where its voice is no longer needed. And this is where the next level of transformation unfolds beyond technique, beyond ritual, into the pure embodiment of trust. But first, you must pass through the final veil of resistance. Let's step into the last stronghold of the ego and see what happens when you truly let go. Simplicity doesn't just calm the nervous system, it confronts the parts of you that were built in survival. For those who've spent years believing they had to struggle to be worthy, ease feels dangerous. When life starts to flow, when things begin arriving without force, the old identity rooted in effort, sacrifice, and proving starts to panic. It whispers, "You didn't earn this," or "This is too good to be true." Because if you were conditioned to equate value with difficulty, then simplicity threatens everything you thought you had to be. And so, unconsciously, many sabotage the very miracles they once prayed for. A deposit comes in, and suddenly an unexpected bill shows up, not because of bad luck, but because the subconscious still believes you don't deserve to keep it. This is not a curse, it's an invitation. It reveals the parts of you that have mistaken struggle for safety or lack for identity. Think of the person who finally manifests love, only to feel uncomfortable and push it away. Or the one who achieves success, then immediately feels unworthy and creates chaos to match the familiar vibration of not enough. These patterns aren't failures. They're energetic echoes of an outdated self. But here's the truth. Ease is not unnatural. It's your birthright. Flow is not a reward. It's a remembrance. And clarity is not something you earn. It's something you allow. As long as your sense of identity is tethered to effort, the universe will keep reflecting efforting. But the moment you begin releasing the belief that you must struggle to receive, reality begins reorganizing around your new frequency. Ease isn't the absence of work. It's the presence of trust. And that trust unlocks the field faster than any technique ever could. So when does your life begin to shift? Not when time passes, but when your frequency upgrades. And that shift into the truest version of you is exactly where we're headed next. Let's bring it all together. When you no longer need the thing you once chased, something profound shifts within your energetic field. It's not that the desire disappears, it's that the charge behind it dissolves. The desperation, the urgency, the subtle tension of needing it to feel complete, all of that quiets. And in that quiet, your frequency softens into resonance. Suddenly, you're not reaching out with lack. You're resting in sufficiency. You begin to live your life as if you're already held, already chosen, already enough. And the universe, like a mirror without delay, reflects that knowing back to you. This is the essence of becoming an energetic match, not by performing perfection or proving your worth, but by no longer needing external reality to validate your inner wholeness. It's the moment the woman who once longed for love starts truly enjoying her own company, and love walks in without effort. It's the man who once felt invisible finally sees his own brilliance and opportunities begin to find him. Non-attachment isn't detachment. It's devotion to alignment without addiction to outcome. It's showing up to life with open palms, not clenched fists. Because what you chase, you push away. But what you embody, you attract with grace. You are no longer begging the universe for a response. You are becoming the answer. You're not sitting and waiting. You're standing in readiness. That's why the ones who seem to receive effortlessly are not the ones who tried the hardest. They're the ones who stopped chasing and started radiating. They moved from hoping to knowing, from wanting to being, from craving to creating. And that's your next step too. But don't confuse this ease with indifference. The shift is not passive. It's powerful. Because from this place, every action you take is no longer a cry for help. It becomes a declaration of alignment. And that's where the field begins to rearrange everything on your behalf. Let's explore that next. When you stop needing the outcome to prove your worth, your actions begin to rise, not from fear or lack, but from an inner sense of fullness. You no longer do things to get love, attention, success, or validation. You move because you're already rooted in the knowing that you are enough. And from that place, every choice you make becomes a ripple of authenticity, not a mask of desperation. Inspired action doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like play. It doesn't say, I must do this or else I'll miss my chance. It says, I feel called to do this because it lights me up. It's the subtle but powerful difference between pushing and flowing. The person who shares their voice online, not because they're afraid of being forgotten, but because they genuinely want to express something meaningful, transmits a frequency that the world naturally leans into. It's magnetic because it's clean. No hidden agendas. No unspoken expectations. Just energy in motion, flowing from wholeness. That's what the field responds to. Not just what you do, but why you do it. When your action comes from overflow, it carries a resonance of freedom. It echoes the truth that you're not acting to fix a broken version of yourself. You're allowing the next version of you to expand outward. You're not seeking to fill a gap. You're radiating from fullness. And this is why things often start to move quickly when you stop trying to force them. Because the universe is not rewarding your hustle. It's responding to your harmony. It's answering the signal that says, I trust myself. I trust the timing. I trust this desire is already on its way. In that energy, your action becomes sacred, not as a transaction for results, but as an expression of alignment. And that's the frequency the field has been waiting for. But there's one final piece that completes this cycle, and it's what turns fleeting results into lasting transformation. Let's go there next. When your actions come from overflow, from joy rather than fear, the energy they carry becomes clean, magnetic, and undiluted. But that energy can still be disrupted if your attention becomes obsessive. The moment you keep checking for signs, results, and external confirmations, you are silently broadcasting doubt. Like a watched pot that never boils, the field slows down not because it's not responding, but because your constant surveillance introduces friction. It's the subtle difference between being in flow and trying to monitor the flow. You can't both swim and measure the river at the same time. True power is when you release the need to verify and instead let the process unfold without micromanagement. Think of the person who checks their phone every 5 minutes, hoping for a message, a sale, or a sign that something is working. That checking becomes the dominant frequency, not the action they took before. But the ones who walk away from the result, who live their life while trusting the field to handle the details, are the ones who experience the biggest shifts. Not because they did more, but because they watched less. The field is not your employee, it's your mirror. It reflects not your inspection, but your vibration. And when you radiate ease, trust, and detachment, the reflection comes faster, clearer, and more aligned. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you plant the seed and then walk away knowing it's growing. That trust is the signal the universe has been waiting to respond to. So now, as you arrive at the edge of this journey, one truth becomes clear. You never had to chase. You never had to prove. You only ever needed to remember who you are, how energy works, and how to live in alignment with your inner truth. And there's only one final thing left to do. One sentence, one declaration, one opening. Are you ready to let it in? Let's finish this together. You are never here to chase outcomes, beg the universe, or force reality into submission. You were designed to remember to recognize that the real power is not in how much you do, but in the frequency you hold. All along, manifestation has never been about effort. It's about identity. You can say the right words, take the right steps, follow every strategy you've ever learned. But if your energy is still rooted in fear, doubt, or desperation, the field mirrors that, not your checklist. And this explains why people who seem to do less often receive more. They've tapped into a frequency that aligns without effort. Their actions don't come from need, but from knowing. From the inside out, they've become the version of themselves who no longer questions the outcome. Because when your vibration is steady, your world begins to shape around it without force. You become magnetic not by controlling, but by allowing. Not by proving, but by trusting. Not by chasing, but by embodying. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. And the field, in its infinite intelligence, is not fooled by surface-level action. It tunes into the signal beneath your words, beneath your actions, beneath your smile. When that signal says, "I am already enough," life rearranges to reflect it. And so now, at the edge of this remembering, there is nothing left to fix, nothing more to chase. There is only one thing to do: declare who you choose to be. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. This is the moment your vibration claims the timeline it's been calling in. The shift doesn't begin with more doing. It begins with one clear, unwavering frequency. So take a breath, feel your center, and say it with your whole being. Because this is the statement that unlocks it all. Now that you've remembered the truth, that frequency shapes form and alignment, creates attraction, it's time to seal that knowing with a living declaration. Not a wish, not a chant, but a choice. So take a deep breath. Place your hand on your heart. Feel the space behind your ribs soften. And now say it with me, not from your mind, but from your center. I let it in. Again, slower this time. I let it in. Feel the vibration of those 4 words move through you. Let your nervous system begin to settle, not because something arrived, but because you finally allowed it. This is not a phrase to summon a result. It is a signal to the field that you are open. No resistance, no delay, just presence. The word "let" carries permission. The word "in" affirms receiving. Together, they form the frequency of surrender. Quiet confidence that you are no longer pushing reality away, because what you've asked for is not far. It's been waiting just outside your guarded edges. And when you soften those edges with trust, you stop keeping it out. You stop postponing what's already here. This moment is not about more effort. It's about claiming your readiness to receive with clarity. So when you say, "I let it in," you're not asking, you're becoming. You are telling the quantum field, "I no longer block. I no longer delay. I no longer doubt. I allow." And in this allowance, your energy stabilizes into the version of you who no longer waits. This is the moment your field says yes. And from here, you don't need to push. You don't need to convince. You only need to stay here in this aligned vibration where everything begins to shift. Because the power of receiving is not in the reaching, it's in the relaxing. And when you relax into who you already are, something miraculous begins to unfold. Let's complete this activation with one final reminder of who you've now become. And now that you've spoken the words, "I let it in," you've done more than just activate a moment. You've shifted your identity. Because in truth, you are not separate from the field you've been trying to reach. You are the field. You are the wave and the receiver, the spark and the mirror. There is no gap to close, only a frequency to return to. Every time you breathe with intention, every time you soften instead of strive, every time you remember rather than reach, you are realigning the entire quantum current within and around you. This isn't just energy work, it's identity work. You've gone from waiting to allowing, from asking to embodying, from hoping to being. And when you say, I let it in, you are not requesting, you are reclaiming. You are stepping out of the cycle of needing and into the state of knowing. Because what you were looking for was never outside. It was always encoded in your vibration. Every affirmation, every vision board, every technique was only pointing you back to this. You are the field. Let it flow. Let it come to you, not because you chased it, but because you became it. This is the moment to stop questioning your worth. Stop watching for signs and start living as the signal. And if this episode helped you remember who you really are, if it spoke to something deep and quiet inside, then let the field ripple further. Like this video to anchor the energy. Leave a comment and declare it. I let it in. Subscribe to stay aligned with this frequency. And share this with someone who's been trying too hard, so they can remember it's already theirs. This is not the end. This is your return to coherence, your return to power, your return to you. You are never separate. You were only resisting. So now, let it flow. Let it land. Let it in. See you in the next episode. Until then, stay present, stay aligned, and let it all in.